Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something essential for pretty much everyone in the professional world: storytelling.
Yeah, but specifically B2B storytelling, how businesses talk to other businesses. And let's be honest, why a lot of that communication just, falls flat.
Right. We're digging into a conversation that got a lot of traction, started by LinkedIn for marketing. It looked at Alfred Samba's thoughts on where professional storytelling is heading.
Millions of views on that one. It clearly struck a chord.
So the big question we're trying to answer here, kind of the mission for this deep dive, is what actually makes a professional story stick? Especially for complex B2B stuff, how do brands get past just listing features?
Exactly. How do they make real connections? We look through the discussion, and it really boils down to, two main things: being real and having a clear purpose.
Realness and purpose. Okay.
Get that balance right. Connect the human side with measurable results, and that's where influence comes from.
Okay, let's unpack the first one then. Authenticity. Realness. How does that actually work in a B2B setting? It sounds squishy.
It can sound that way, yeah. But one point that kept coming up from Cat Maven advisors was that a story connects only when it feels real.
Feels real.
Yeah, not like some hyper-polished ad. It needs to reflect the actual experience of doing the work.
Okay, but when I hear authenticity in marketing, I think like a startup founder sharing their smoothie recipe. How does that translate to, say, selling a multi-million-dollar IT system? Isn't showing the struggle, kind of risky?
See, that's the hurdle, right? And it's exactly what you, the listener, need to figure out. Sharing struggles is risky if you frame it as weakness. But for B2B, realness means showing the actual journey.
The journey.
And people behind it. The messy middle part of solving the problem, not just the perfect end result.
So we're not talking about like airing dirty laundry or confessing total failure, more like showing competence through the challenges.
Precisely. B2B buyers aren't actually looking for perfection. They know things get complicated. They're buying your ability to solve tough problems.
Okay.
So if you share the journey, maybe the obstacles your engineers hit, or, the 3 prototypes that didn't quite work before the final one did, you're showing resilience. You're showing mastery.
Yeah.
You're showing the human effort that went into it. That builds serious trust, way more than pretending everything was easy.
That makes sense. It flips vulnerability into like strategic competence.
Okay, so for someone listening, maybe prepping for a big client meeting or just trying to get up to speed on a technical topic, this is useful. You don't just want the specs.
No, you want the why and the how. It's critical for understanding, for knowledge transfer. Focusing on the people and their journey, even if it was tough, makes complex information relatable.
Right. It pulls it out of abstract data points and into something more, human. A shared experience almost.
Exactly. So connection comes from realness, showing the people and the journey. Okay. But that's just one side of the coin, right? Authenticity is great, but B2B needs results. It has to lead somewhere concrete.
Absolutely. The heart needs to connect to the head, as you said. That's where we shift from the company's internal story to the client's external results.
And the key idea here came from?
From EDR India's perspective. Their point was that truly memorable stories, the ones that stick, are explicitly built on quantifiable impact, not just features.
Impact, yeah, we've all been there, right? Those presentations with slide after slide of features and you can't remember a single one afterwards. So what did EDR India do? How did they frame their solutions? They had a really strong example.
They did. They talked about their tech, like their sun heat barrier, let's call it SHB, and their smart energy audits. Now, the SHB, just for context, it's this specific material science thing designed to drastically cut cooling costs in big industrial places, data centers, that kind of thing.
Okay, so complex, technical B2B stuff. How did they tell that story differently?
They basically ditched the tech specs in the main narrative. Their whole view was, these aren't just technologies. They are tools to reform, perform, and transform industries.
Reform, perform, and transform.
Yeah, see how active that language is. It's about purpose outcome. It centers the client's change, not just the product itself.
Okay, reform, perform, transform. That framework definitely lifts the conversation beyond just buying a thing. It sounds more like a partnership, like systemic change. But for B2B, you still need the numbers, right? What specifics did they mention?
Right, you need the proof. They focused on 3 concrete metrics that, really hit home for decision makers today. Actual energy savings, real carbon reduction, and the wider ESG impact.
Okay, let's pause on ESG for a sec, because you hear that everywhere now. For anyone listening who isn't deep in corporate strategy, what does that mean here?
Good point. ESG is environmental, social, and governance. So when EDR India talks about cutting carbon and saving energy, that hits the environmental criteria square on.
Right.
By framing their story around that kind of impact, they're signaling something much bigger. They're saying, our solution doesn't just make you more efficient, it helps you meet these huge corporate responsibility goals that regulators and investors care about.
Ah, okay. So it shifts the conversation from like our product saves 10% energy to our product changes your company's environmental standing and potentially makes you more attractive to investors. That's a different lead.
Totally different level of strategic value.
Yeah.
It's where technical ability meets, global responsibility. Rooting your story in that kind of purpose shows you get the client's big picture challenges, not just the immediate transaction.
And this focus on purpose, it plays out online too, doesn't it?
It really does. They mentioned specific hashtags they use, like hashtag #EaterIndia, hashtag sustainability, and hashtag storytelling with impact. That shows how professionals actually search for and categorize solutions related to systemic change. Purpose is searchable. Purpose gets shared.
Okay, so putting it together, we need realness built on sharing the people and the journey, and we need purpose demonstrated through impact and this idea of transformation.
It's the synthesis, yeah. You need the human story, the realness, to build that initial trust, that emotional connection. And you need the purpose-driven impact, the hard numbers, the outcomes, to justify the decision and show how it fits the long-term strategy. You need, well, both the heart and the balance sheet.
Now let's zoom out, the big picture.
Yep.
Why should someone listening, maybe someone not directly in sales or marketing, really care about this shift in storytelling?
Because it's not just a marketing thing anymore. It's becoming a core professional skill, period. We saw that in the related topics popping up around this discussion on LinkedIn. It wasn't just marketing.
What else was there?
Oh, everything. Sales, sure, but also IT services, business administration, HR management, engineering, even soft skills.
Okay, wait. So if I'm in HR, I'm supposed to tell a reform, perform, transform story. How does that work? Am I talking about like the difficult journey of letting someone go? That sounds awkward.
No, not quite like that. Think about it differently. It's about the journey of team transformation. Let's say you're rolling out new AI tools, right? That needs a massive upskilling effort across the company.
Okay.
The old way, just announce the tool, maybe mandate training. The new way, the storytelling way.
You tell the story of the transition.
Exactly. The HR story is how you reform employee skills through really good supportive training. How you help people perform effectively with these new tools in this, changing landscape.
Yeah.
And ultimately how that whole effort transforms the company culture into one that's more adaptable, more future ready.
Ah, I see. It's a human story of change, driven by a strategic purpose. Okay, that clicks. What about, say, engineering or IT, where the tech details often feel like the most important part?
Same logic applies. If you're pitching a big IT infrastructure upgrade, you don't lead with the terabytes and processing speeds.
You start with the journey.
Yeah, maybe the journey of diagnosing the current system's weaknesses, that's the realness, the human-led investigation. Then you frame your solution as the tool that will reform their old, creaky systems, that allows their core operations to perform reliably at peak. And that transforms their whole operational risk profile.
So you're taking the technical, maybe dry process and wrapping it in the stakes, the outcomes, making it graspable for like executives who aren't deep tech experts.
Precisely. So whether your day-to-day is focused on AI or dealing with complex buyer groups or even developing soft skills, all things mentioned in that LinkedIn context, these core principles hold true.
Realness and purpose.
Genuine connection through realness and measurable impact through purpose, those seem to be the keys to being understood, being persuasive, being influential really in any professional field today. You've got to tell the story of who did the work and why it matters all at once.
That synthesis is powerful. Okay, let's quickly recap the main takeaways for you listening. If you want your professional communication, your story, to actually connect and have impact, first, lean into reality.
Share the genuine journey, the people involved, strategic authenticity.
Second, anchor it in purpose.
Focus on measurable benefits, quantifiable impact, and that clear transformation arc. Reform, perform, transform.
Ultimately, it sounds like the future of effective B2B communication is about showing the valuable, sometimes difficult progress you help others make.
That seems to be the core message, yeah.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to mull over directly from this material. If the best professional stories now really hinge on showing transformation and increasingly ESG impact, How well can you or your organization actually quantify and talk about the reform, perform, and transform stages of your own work right now?
Are you ready to tell that full value story? That's your next deep dive.
We'll see you next time.